Hey Stan, I guess we'll start with your assessment of the season, and unfortunately falling a little short. But how did you think things kind of evolved for this hockey team?
Yeah, sitting here today with the way it ended, it certainly feels like a disappointment, and I think it's hard to, in the moment, reflect upon how great a season it was. I think over time you get some perspective on that, and I know from experience that the emotions of the moment right now are challenging. But I'll try to do my best to explain, the fact that this was a great season. We fell short, but we did a lot of great things. There's 30 other teams that would trade with where we were, so I think just for me, it was my first year being here with the team and being in Edmonton, and I heard a lot about what it's like to witness the fans and the support, and I watched it from a distance. But I guess I first want to say it's incredible, the support that we have from the fans here and the enthusiasm they have for the team. And there's nothing like being here in the playoffs and watching the city be captivated by our team. So that was really special. And, it's a credit to everyone here who loves the team as much as they do. I think, at the end of the day, Florida, played better than we did in the final, and they deserved it. I think leading up to that point, I think we played some very impressive hockey. And if you start from really Game 3 of the LA series, once we got going all the way through to the final, we played really, really well, and we made it. I think we did to those other teams what Florida did to us, which is they looked like they couldn't get to their game. Like, we just really were able to win a lot of different ways. It wasn't just one style that we were winning with. Sometimes it was the goaltending, sometimes it was the forwards, sometimes it was how great our D was transitioning the puck, sometimes it was our big guys found a way to score an overtime goal to win the game for us. So I think we had a lot of different contributions, and we left those teams, LA, Dallas, and Vegas, scratching their heads like, what happened? And that's kind of what happened to us. We didn't play our best in the final. Florida was excellent. I think you have to give them credit. They played really well. And then that combination where we weren't quite at our best and they were, that's what ended up the way we did. But I think I was certainly proud of the resiliency the group showed, especially later in the season when we had a lot of injuries and we had different lineups every night. We were dressing with 17 skaters and, lineups where guys that hadn't played together before. And we found a way, and the coaches deserve a lot of credit for being able to get that new group starting in the playoffs, really no ramp-up time, to quickly find out which players were good together. And, they made some changes and mixed things up, and they found the right combo. So I guess that's my quick summary on the team.
And just wanted to add about, obviously, July 1st, the clock starts ticking on Connor McDavid to resign. Can you just give us a thought on that, and obviously the importance of getting him signed, and how do you kind of view that?
Well, Connor's the best player in the league, the most important player in the league. He's our captain, he's our leader, so certainly he's the number one priority. I think also listening to Connor's take on things, he's earned the right for us to be respectful of his timing. Certainly we're eager to meet with him whenever he wants, but also understanding that he just went through a very tough ending to the season. And so timing-wise, that's Connor's going to drive that process. But there's no question he's a pivotal player on our team, and not just what he does on the ice, but his leadership. I've had a chance to work with him now this year, and I've been just so impressed with how things you guys probably don't see, but what kind of a teammate he is, and you know, he's incredibly important to our group, and you know, whenever he's ready, we're gonna dive into that.
Stan, your first year as GM in Chicago, you guys went to the Cup Final. The only difference was you won that year instead of losing. Then you kind of had to retool, and you guys stayed in that window for a while. So how do you use that experience on how to retool a team? Like Florida won, and they still made changes. You're obviously going to make changes. How do you approach that, and do you see an area that it's the most pressing that you need to change?
Yeah, I've always thought that win or lose, it's good to have some new players in your group, because it's the players that weren't here with this group this season, you know, they have a hunger to try to, you know, experience what it was like to get all the way to the final. Like, unless they were on the Florida Panthers, they didn't go through that this year. So they didn't get a chance to experience what a run felt like. So I think some newness is always good. And we're going to have some changes. We're not going to bring the same group back. How many is tough to say right now. Like, that's where the work begins really yesterday when we met with all of our players, and I also had several conversations with other GMs. I've had some again this morning already, and so that work will play out over the next 10 days to find out what other teams are looking to do, what players we want to change out. I think looking at our team, the area with probably the least amount of change will be the defense. I think that, you know, we have guys under contract. They played very well. I really liked the way our defense played this season. I think they did a good job. They grew as the season went on. I thought they were really important to where we were getting to the final. So I think there probably won't be big changes there. I think up front we need some different players. You know, and we're going to look at everything, because I think now is the time when you have to look at your forwards, your D, and your goalies, and see how can we get better. And sometimes it's just an incremental difference where I wouldn't expect, you know, wholesale changes. We're not going to have 9 or 10 new players, but I do think we are going to have some changes. So we'll have to look at, probably more likely, the forwards and the goalies are the ones we're going to evaluate the most deeply.
Kris, since you arrived, no team has won more games, playoffs, and regular season combined. You've had lots of success. You obviously didn't get your ultimate goal. What do you see as a coach, and how you can change? Like, the biggest difference probably from the one year to the next was your penalty kill. Last playoffs was unreal. This year it really struggled. So what do you do as a coach this summer to try to look to say, what can I do to help us improve, which is hard to do because you've had a lot of success?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we want to address over the summer going into the next regular season. And, you know, special teams would be one of them. The penalty kill obviously was not nearly at that level it was the previous year. And a lot of it had to do with, you know, some fortunate events, just of luck being part of that. But there's a lot of player personnel on our penalty kill from the previous year to this year. And we had so much success that last year, or 2 years ago, that it'd be ridiculous to change it no matter how many players were missing. Just we felt that we're dialed in, and then through the year we kind of felt that it wasn't running as well because we had some players that weren't as good at it as the year before. So that's one area that we're looking at adjusting and how we're going to do it. And obviously we won't make any decisions today. We're going to certainly see what our roster is going to look like that next year and what type of players that would be on the penalty kill. Yeah, there's other things that we want to look at on, you know, our system-wise, whether it's what we do in our neutral zone or our defensive zone coverage. You know, I think there's always things that you can get a little bit better at. Obviously, we're very happy with the success that we've had, so we're not going to be changing a lot, but I think there's things that we can improve upon a little bit.
Stan, just to piggyback off of Derek's question about Connor McDavid, he said yesterday that he'd have no problem signing here if he sees that there's a window to contend and to try to win over and over again. With that in mind, how do you view this offseason? Do you kind of see it as a really important couple of weeks here to really show a blueprint to Connor for the future success?
Yeah, I think the whole goal is to always find a way to improve your team and also sustain the good aspects of this past season. So I think we've got a lot of players that are in the prime of their career. So I think that bodes well for us. I think, there's no reason that the guys that drove the ship for us this year, they're all going to be part of this going forward. So I think adding to it is something we want to do, and that's what we're going to spend our time on. But I think if you look at our group and the group that's been here the last couple of years, that as they referenced, we've had a lot of wins the last couple of seasons with this group. So there's a lot of things to be excited about, and with the exception of maybe one or two guys, everyone is in their prime of their ages. Like, they're not in their late 30s. I mean, Corey Perry's the oldest guy. He had a fantastic season. But other than Corey, we don't have a team that can't be just as good the next few years. So I think that bodes well for us. And then adding to it is important. We want to try to bring some youth into our team as well. I think that will be something we want to do. I think there's a benefit in the youthful enthusiasm, having a couple younger players. You don't want to have a young player just because he's young. But I think having some guys who are, who can show a progression to their game over a season. So they start at one level in October. By the time you get to March and April, their game has really improved. That's how you can show your team is getting better in season. If you have a couple players like that, because usually the veteran players kind of maintain their level. But and the older players, they're trying to maintain it. They don't want it to drop. But I think if we have a little bit of youth, I think that's important. So we're gonna do our best to give opportunities to players. But for where we are, it's not like we're gonna put a bunch of inexperienced guys in the lineup, because our objective is to win next year. We're not trying to take a different route. We want to be playing in the final next year.
We had Trent Frederick here yesterday. What can you tell us, I guess, about where negotiations are with him? And he also said he's quite interested in playing center more at the NHL level, even full-time. What do you make of that, and how that could kind of make for construction of the roster in the offseason here?
Yeah, I don't have anything to announce on Trent, but we're hopeful we can get something to the finish line there, and to keep him in Edmonton. Getting to know him as a person has been a great experience, because he's got a lot of attributes that I think are very important to a successful team. He's incredibly competitive, great teammate, great team guy. He brings an element that I think you need, which is very competitive. He's fearless. He gives our team to know that nobody's going to push us around. But I think you touched on it there. It's really impressive to have someone with his skill set that can play three different positions. When we talked to him yesterday, and he did. He said he likes to play center. He likes to play right wing too, or left. He almost prefers center or right wing to left wing. And we used him this year mostly on left. But I think that he's a young guy. To be a free agent, usually they're a little bit older than that. So he's got kind of the prime years of his career ahead of him. So, if we can get that done, I think that flexibility to use him in the middle, Kris can talk about that as well. That's more of a coaching thing. But I think having the versatility for a guy with his skill set, he's a pretty unique player on the league. There's not a lot of guys that have that combination of his age, his experience, his competitiveness, size, physicality, and I think when you add it all up, he could bring a lot to the team.
Stan, what can you say about the guy sitting beside you, the way he coached, and is there any thought to extending his contract?
I thought Kris did an outstanding job this year. I really enjoyed working with him. First and foremost, I think we have a great camaraderie and collaboration. I think we see the game similarly. Not identical, but very similar. I think he's got a, it's not easy coaching star players. I think that's, when I'm talking to my dad over the years, that's they can be some of the most challenging guys to coach because they have so much talent, but to be able to connect with them and get them, to be able to play at their best, but the way that you need them to play for the team, I think he did an outstanding job. And I think, I think Kris is going to be the coach here for a while, and I enjoy working with him, and I think we're lucky to have him.
One question, has Dallas asked you for permission to talk to Glenn Gulletson?
I don't want to get into that right now.
Is that a no or a yes?
No, I understand you're asking, but I'm not going to make that announcement.
Stan, Connor obviously made it clear that winning is the most important thing for him. When you're dealing with a player whose primary focus isn't just about money, do you have to kind of sell, I guess, the organization and your vision a bit more to Connor rather than, if his primary focus was just, dollars and cents?
I don't know if you have to sell anything any more than another. I think there's no question Connor is all about winning. I mean, from the first time I met him and talked to him, he talked about he wants to win. He just wants to win the cup. That's all he cares about. He's not driven by statistics or points or records or money. And I think that's what you love about him. So, yeah, the objective is to demonstrate. We have the same goal, and from that perspective, like everyone here, that's why we do it. That's why I'm working, and that's why Kris is doing this. I would imagine is we're here because there's, I've been fortunate, very fortunate to be able to win, and there's no feeling like that when everything comes together as a group, and you achieve the ultimate accomplishment. That's why we do this. And so, yes, it's, I guess, my job to connect with Connor that way and demonstrate that's what we're all trying to do. We all have the same objective, and I know how passionate he is about winning. It's what I love about him. I mean, he's not just a fantastic hockey player, but he's a great person, a great leader, and he's incredibly motivated to do whatever it takes.
You mentioned that goaltending and forwards are two areas where you might be looking or will be looking to make some changes. How aggressive are you going to be at potentially making a goaltending change this summer?
I don't want to single the goaltending out. I think it's just something that we're going to look at and investigate what's the best path moving forward for our team. And it's really hard to predict where that's going to go. And, we have to have a lot of conversations about what other teams are looking to do. And eventually we'll come up with the best approach for our team that we think will give us the best chance next year. And I'm not going to handicap what that's going to look like because it's really too early to tell right now.
Stan, this team has spent a lot of draft picks over the last few years, and some good young players got away in the last year or so. How do you stay in win now mode while still protecting yourself 4 or 5 years down the road so you don't hit that barren wasteland when the core of this team is mid-30s?
Well, I think it's a challenge, but I think what we've really tried to do is invest in our player development group and recruitment of free agent players. I think that's important. That's going to be a big focus for us moving forward. I think we had a great season this year. I credit to the staff. I think they did a tremendous job on the player development side, led by Kelly Larson. And, over in Europe, we had Toby Salmelainen, who did a great job finding some really promising prospects that are going to come over and join our group. So it's true, we haven't had a lot of, first and second round draft picks. That's not the only way you can find players. You can find players later in the draft, and then you need to lean on your player development group, and you need to lean on your amateur scouts to find those players wherever you're picking. Even if you're picking in the third or fourth round, you got to try to find a player there. and then there's free agents. And I think, the one thing it's good for us is we are an attractive location for free agents to come, because they look at our team, they look at the chance to play on a really good team with great players, and also, there's opportunity for them. And I think that's something that we're going to continue to do. So I think we have to be aggressive, though. We're trying to win now. We're not necessarily trying to build our team to be good in 5 years. We certainly want to maintain that. We don't want to drop off. And I think that's going to fall upon our player development and our recruitment of free agents.
Over here, hi. Just wondering if you have any second guessing, any regrets, anything to not be a little bit more aggressive at the trade deadline to try and bulk up the team for a long playoff run?
It kind of cuts both ways. Like, you always, with the benefit of hindsight, you're going to make different changes all the time. But I think you got to look at the information you had at the time and the options that you could have done. So I think looking back at what we did, I was very happy with the way that went. I think Wallman was a big addition to our team. I don't think he would have been able to. Our team would have been able to get where we did without Jake. So, I think our staff did a good job. We really discussed that thoroughly. So I'm trying to look forward, not look backwards. I think you have to look back to learn from it, maybe learn for next year, but I don't think there's a lot of value in just second guessing yourself.
And Kris, I brought it up to you before about the fans, and you are a fan favorite here in the city. I'm going to kind of go a little bit more fun here, but I don't know if you saw that look-alike pastor, and any
I
thought?
did. Outstanding. He was so handsome. Almost Brad Pitt.
Does it kind of make you laugh that he says he can't go anywhere because everyone thinks he's you, and they're so excited to meet Kris Knoblauch? And so just your thoughts of, coming to the city, and then just how much the fans have, accepted you and learned to really love you, and then you got a guy who can't even go to the grocery store without being asked for a pic.
My time in Edmonton's been phenomenal, and I'm not even saying just my time here as head coach of the Oilers. My time here as a junior hockey player, my 5 years at the University of Alberta, I've always enjoyed my time in Edmonton, and I didn't necessarily think I was ever going to come back. I didn't think my path was going to come here. And then for this opportunity to come back to Edmonton to be a head coach of a franchise like the Oilers is phenomenal. And my time here, I've really, really enjoyed it. And the excitement around the city, especially during the playoffs, was very enjoyable. Seeing all the flags, the excitement around the city, and coming back from the airport that last time after losing that Game 6 in Florida, and you just feel a little bit of, obviously at the time in Florida, we disappointment with the team, but then you come into the city and you feel disappointment for the city. And hopefully I'm coaching here for a long time. I love Edmonton. I love the organization, the great players that are here, and working with Stan, and everybody is, it's ideal for a coach. There's a lot of things that can be difficult, but it's pretty ideal for me here. And, hopefully we can continue what we've done and build off of it, because I don't think there'd be anything better than to win it all in a place like this.
Sure.
You've been to 2 cups. You played the same goalie both times, and I think we'd all agree Florida had better goaltending than you guys had in both instances. No one's saying you're going to go out and get Bobrovsky or Hellebuck or Vasilevsky or a guy like that. But do you need to address your goaltending to show your team, your players, more than anyone, that you are trying to do something about the fact that you were the second best goaltended club in both finals?
Yeah, I was kind of expecting that question. I think goaltending's a strange part of the game. It's, on the one hand, it's kind of simultaneously the most important thing, but also it's the hardest thing to really understand, because sometimes the goaltenders who you think are the best aren't the best. And I think, just this playoff run is a perfect example. Like in the 4 rounds, in 3 of the 4 rounds, we had the better goaltending than our opponent. And you look at Kemper, Aiden Hill, and Ottinger, our goalies were better than them in each of those series. And I think that's the reason we went to the final. And then in the final, it flipped. So 3 of the 4 rounds, we had the better goaltending. That's just simple to look at it. And, so I can't explain that. It's hard to explain how that happened or why it happened. And I'm not disputing that in the final, Bobrovsky was excellent. I mean, he made a lot of big saves when we had chances early in games and we didn't get the lead, and credit to him. Or, our players needed to pick the corners better. Like it's one of the two, right? And but it's I can't really explain how in the first 3 rounds, not that either goaltending was elite, but ours was always better than our opponent, which I think is strange. You wouldn't think that if you just were to talk to the casual fan, but you just got to look at the way the series played out. So it's a fair question. I don't have an answer for you right now. I mean, we're going to examine not just our goalies, but our whole team and see if there's a way to be better prepared next season. So it could involve the goaltending, it could not. There's a lot of factors that I just don't have all the information to answer you right now.
Do you, I mean, there's 2 ways to go, I suppose. Go out and get a super elite goalie, and there you have it. Or build a team that can win a Stanley Cup without a super elite goaltender. Really, are there any other options than that?
Well, those are the 2 extremes, certainly. The other thing is the way the reality of the world is, it's not like you just go down to the corner and pick up an elite goalie. They're not just waiting for you to join your team, right? So how many are there anyways in that group? And then even if you look at the guys I think were considered elite, some of them have had some tough playoffs. So there's no guarantee in the goaltending world. That's why I said it's simultaneously the most important, but it's also in some instances not why teams win. So if you have a strong enough team, then there's been teams that win the cup without elite goaltending, and there's been teams that won because of their goalie. So it's a great discussion point, and I think it's what the media and the fans love to talk about. I get it. I understand that. So we've got to, take in that information and sift through it and come up with a plan, and that's what we're going to do over the next few weeks and months.